Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is QueenTols, but you can also call me Tol. If this is your first time watching me, you're welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, you are a real.
Sometimes it can get rough when you've had enough. I'll be your Don Corleone.
So if you do see me looking down, just know it's because my notes is right there, so that's why I'm having to look down just to make sure I'm on track. Based off my last two videos about the apartment tour I did get a couple of questions. I decided, you know what, let me just do a sit down video giving you guys tips, pointers, just to help you guys in your renting process, because I realize that most people who will be watching this is going to be your first time renting an apartment here in Canada, well, especially here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alright, so I'm going to leave both links to the two empty apartment tours I did previously in the description box if you would like to see that as well. Based off, like I said earlier, based off the questions I got, and most of them coming from international students coming to University of Manitoba, I decided I feel like this is going to be a good video to help you in renting, because I know not everyone is going to be interested in staying in school accommodation. So if you're one of them, this is the video for you. I'll be sharing tips and important questions for you to ask your prospective landlord or your prospective building management before actually signing your lease, before you agree to take the apartment from them. I'm going to break this into three parts. The first one is going to be questions to ask about the rent. The second one will be questions you need to ask about your lease before you do sign it, while the third category is going to be questions about the apartment, questions about the unit you're going to be living in. You want to know all this before you sign and agree to actually take in this accommodation, whether it's an apartment, a suite, a room in the house. These are just questions to help you and things for you to do before agreeing to accept that form of accommodation. Now, starting with the questions to ask about rent. Obviously, before you contact the leasing agent or before you contact anyone in charge of the form of accommodation you're looking at, usually posted whenever any form of accommodation is listed out. So in the listing, you're always going to see the rent listed out there. So that's the first thing you want to take note of if that's something that's in your budget. But this is something you also need to know, that if you're a good salesperson, if you're someone who knows how to negotiate, there might be room for you to be able to negotiate the apartment price or any form of accommodation you're looking at. There is always room for you to negotiate that. I'm not saying they're going to approve, I'm not saying they're going to accept the price you're offering. There is no harm in trying. You can do that and you might be approved, you never know. I say this because I remember having one of the apartment whereby one of my roommates decided to speak to the caretaker and they were able to reduce the price of the rent for us, and that was because the previous people who lived in the apartment didn't clean the apartment properly. So we decided that we were going to clean the apartment, and in order for us to do that, we told them to reduce our rent, and it worked. You just need to be able to be creative to find loopholes as to why they should reduce the rent for you. So that's a pointer that you might. Secondly, you want to find out how much is due in terms of rent before move-in. I say this because depending on the city you're in, some cities or some management require for you to pay your security deposit and your first month's rent. As some management or some building landlord might require for you to pay the first month's rent and the last month's rent. This all determines based on the building manager or your landlord or the city that you're living in. So you want to actually ask to be sure of how much you need to pay before you move in to the apartment. Okay, for those who don't know what a security deposit is, a security deposit is going to be half of what you pay in a month. So let's say in a month you pay 800, your security deposit is going to be 400. So if your building requires for you to pay a security deposit and your first month's rent, so that's going to be 400 plus 800, so that's going to be 1200 you're going to be paying before you move into your apartment. And if your apartment requires for you to pay the first month and the last month, that means you're going to be paying 1600 before moving into that apartment. Thirdly, another question you want to ask is, does this rent include any utilities? I say that because not all buildings provide utilities for you in terms of like they pay. So most times you always have to pay your utility bills yourself. So you need to ask the landlord or the building management, what do they offer? And if the building tells you that you have to pay for your hydro, you have to pay for your electricity, the best thing for you to do is inquire about how much is it usually for the hydro in a month, in the winter time and in the summer time. That's something you always want to inquire about. That's something you always want to know. And also something you want to add to your rent, because definitely that adds to the rent, that adds to your bills for the month. So aside the rent, you need to find out what else will you be paying in that apartment, what else is being offered to you, so that way you know how much your rent is exactly for the month. Also, you want to find out what the amenities of that building is. Some buildings will offer laundry in your suites, and some buildings will offer laundry either in the basement or on the floor, depending on how it's built. You also want to find out about that, if that's something that you know that will be convenient for you. If you know someone who wants to actually leave your apartment, if you know someone who wants to leave your building, because not all buildings do come with a laundry set. So that's also something you need to factor in when looking for a place. Things like that, you just need to find out what your building entails, like what the amenities are, if it's something that is going to work for you, if you're someone who needs parking. Also you also need to ask them for that, because that is usually not included in your rent, and the prices for indoor and outdoor parking varies. So that's something you also need to add to when you're thinking about your rent. So can you see, your rent is not just the final payment, it's not just the final amount you need to pay when it comes to your accommodation, when it comes to your rent. If you're someone who has to pay utilities, so that's going to be rent plus your utility bills plus your parking. That's what's going to make up your rent. Oh, another thing is, if you do see an apartment you like and you want them to change any of the appliances of the apartment before moving in, it's within your right to ask. I'm not saying they might change it, but 80% of the time they always do end up changing it for you if they really do see reasons why you need to change it. I can tell every single time I've asked, my appliance has been changed, it's been changed. So always voice out whatever you don't like about the apartment. It's your apartment, it's your place. Whatever you don't like, speak out, let them know before signing the apartment. It's within your rights for you to have a place that you're comfortable in. Okay, so like I said, remember you paid your security deposit. You also want to ask them that what are the factors in getting the security deposit at the end of your lease. Now this is something you want to know, because if before you sign your lease you do a walk-in with your caretaker, you do a walk-in with whoever it might be, and one thing you always want to make sure is you document everything. Document every single thing. If there's a dent on the wall, make sure they document it, because what you might not know is the person who was there to do your walk-in when you move in might not be there by the time you're moving out. So it might be a different person. Now how are you going to explain to the new person that, oh, this dent was there when I came in? So you need to document every single thing before you sign the lease. You need to go through all the plans, you need to go through every single thing to make sure that everything is up to date. No, it's up to the T. Make sure that the light features are working, everything, because you're going to be responsible for that. Okay. Lastly, when it comes to rent, you want to find out what mode of payment is acceptable, so that way you know how your rent is going to be taken. Some building always want you to pay either through direct deposit. Some also offer through something we call pay card. So for pay card, you go into the website and you pay your rent. But the thing about pay card is, depending on the card you're using, there's always like a service charge. So that's up to you to choose based off whatever means of payment is convenient for you as well. Now let's go to the second segment of the questioning. You need to prepare yourself to ask your prospective landlord or your prospective building management, that is questions about your lease. Guys, the most important thing when it comes to this renting of an apartment, renting of a unit, renting of a house, renting of a room in a house is the lease. Because the lease is a document. Like, your lease is a binding document that owes you, that makes you responsible. Such as it's an asset for you where you stay, it also can be a liability for you if you do not understand what you're signing before you do sign it. We have two types of lease. We have a short lease and we have a long lease. A short lease usually goes for between 3 to 6 months, while a long lease is anything from pretty much a year. A year is a long a long lease. You want to find out what your move-in dates will be based off. It's going to be in your lease. Usually it's always the first of the month, but if you would like to move in before the first of the month, that's something you need to know. That you need to calculate how many days before the first of the month you're moving in, and that way you divide. Okay, let's say your rent is 800, so that's 800, and let's say there's 30 days in a month, so that's 800 divided by 30, so that's $26, pretty much $27 a day. So let's say if you're moving in a week before your original moving date, so that's going to be 26 times 7 for you to move in. You might have a good management and they may tell you no one is currently occupying that space, you can move in earlier if you like, but not all the time. I know in my previous one I was allowed to move in early without having to pay no additional cost, but in my current apartment I did pay for the extra 4 days I moved in earlier before my agreed date. For someone who this is your first time renting an apartment in Canada, whereby you have no credit history at all, you have no rental history at all, now this is going to be a tricky one. I know a lot of international students who just arrived tend to find themselves in this situation because they don't have anyone in the city and they obviously don't have any credit for them to be able to get a place. Now this is a tip you can do. If you do find a place whereby they're like, okay, you have no credit history, is it possible for you to get a guarantor? If you don't know what a guarantor is someone who has been living in that city for a long period of time, who can actually vouch for you, and the person also has an income. I think the person has to be earning about 3 times whatever your rent is for that person to be a guarantor. If you don't have a guarantor, something you could do is you can always offer to pay 3 months in advance rent. That's the trick. You can offer to pay 3 months in advance rent for them to be able to see that, okay, fine, there is potential that you won't have an issue paying your rent, and believe me, 99.9% of the time that always works. I would always say I'd rather you pay in advance, because that way you know that, okay, at least you don't have to worry about your rent for the first semester. So basically if you pay 3 to 4 months rent, that's a whole semester. So before you're thinking about paying rent again, the semester is over. So I would say do that. But if you're someone who can't afford to do that at a go, you need to find a guarantor. Now something you need to know about this guarantor, if just by any mistake or by any chance you miss your payment on your rent, just know your guarantor is responsible for that. Your guarantor is going to be responsible for your rent, and it's also going to affect your guarantor's credit score. So that's always a tricky part, that most people don't always want to be a guarantor for other people. But if you do happen to find someone who agrees to be your guarantor, please make sure you pay your rent on time, because the last thing you want to do is mess up your guarantor's credit history. And also your guarantor needs to be living in the city you're trying to get the apartment in. You can have a guarantor who lives in Toronto and you're trying to get an apartment here in Winnipeg. That will work. Also, questions you need to ask them is, what happens if you do end up signing a 1-year lease with them and you decide you want to break up your lease? In most occasions, what happens is you are responsible for looking for someone to take over your lease. You need to contact the building management, or you need to contact your landlord and let them know, okay, I would like to break my lease. And when you do that, they're mostly going to give you a form saying you want to do that. So that's what the form does. And then you also have to pay an amount with the form. Is usually $75. I know you have to pay that either with check or money order. That's what you have to do if you do decide you want to break your lease. But then again, very important, you are responsible for finding someone to take over your lease. And if you're not able to find someone to take over your lease, whatever months you have left on that lease, you are still responsible for the payment of the rent, just so you know. Lastly, also in this category, you also want to find out that when it comes to this apartment, if you're someone who plans on having a pet, you need to find out if this is going to be a building that is pet friendly. You also want to find out what kind of pets they accept, because some apartments accept just dogs and some are fine with cats and dogs. So it's like You need to find out what kind of pet. Also, would you be needing like a pet insurance? Also, if you'll be needing an insurance for yourself as well. Not all accommodation, not all apartments require for you to get insurance, but please get an insurance, okay? Get a home insurance, get a rental insurance. Please and please and please get a rental insurance. Just get it, okay? Okay, finally we've gotten to the last segment when it comes to questions you need to ask when applying for an apartment here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. You need to find out if you're allowed to change anything in the apartment. Some apartments don't want you putting anything on their walls. I know some people always want to mount their TV on the walls. Not all apartments want you to do that. Some apartments want you to actually inform them, and they bring their own person to actually install the TV on to mount the TV for you on the wall. Is the wall, the colors of the walls. If you would like to paint the walls, if you would like to change the features of the apartment, like in terms of the light features, if you would like to change that to your taste, that's also something you need to communicate with your landlord, with your building management. Just let them know before you go ahead with any changes in the apartment, because if you do that and you get billed, you're responsible, okay? You also want to find out how many set of keys to your apartment are there. Just for security reasons, you want to do that. In most cases, there's always just 2 sets of keys. That's the set of keys you have, and a set of keys that the building keeps. The building keeps a set of keys just in case of anything. Like, let's say they do want to do just say they want to do like a maintenance. But one thing you need to know is before the building management comes into your apartment, they always notify you at least 24 hours before, and there is always a statement in the notification whereby they say if you would like them to come at a different time, please let them know, so you don't have to worry about someone coming into your apartment unannounced and unsupervised as well. Guys, please, if you have any questions about renting an apartment, please leave a comment down below. Ask me whatever question you would have, and also if you're watching this and you have any other suggestions for me, please leave down below as well. I would love to read your suggestions. Thank you for watching. Like I said, I go by QueenTols here on YouTube, but you can also call me Tolu. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.